This week on Arizona Illustrated, a woman-led mariachi group celebrating the works of female musicians.
The reason this ended up turning into a group that is all female and that performs the works of women is because it was an accident.
We meet photographer Robert McDonald in Flagstaff.
You know, I'm 85, and so I'm not going to last, forever. And I need to do something with these images.
The story of a solar startup.
Energy storage is something that will be needed in the next 10, 20 years.
And a lesson on some of our native agave species.
Leaves that stored starch during the winter, all that energy goes into production of the stalk.
Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. We're coming to you today from the Sosa Carrillo House and Mexican-American Heritage and History Museum, which is literally surrounded by the Tucson Convention Center. The building was constructed back in the 1870s, before Arizona was even a state, and it's a great example of Sonoran Row architecture. It was saved from demolition during urban renewal that took place from the 1940s through the 60s in Tucson, but most of the neighborhood surrounding it was not. Now, joining me to discuss the museum and its significance is co-director Alicia Vasquez. This is a labor of love for you. Why are you so passionate about this place? Why is it so special?
Well, this place, I think, reminds me of my grandfather, Louis Vasquez, who was a third-generation Tucsonense. And I grew up hearing stories about Tucson in the past, and I think a lot of kids from Tucson get stories like this from their elders, and you don't really think about it until it's too late. And so for me, the Sosa Carrillo House is a site of resistance. It's a site of resistance from urban renewal. It's a site of resistance from kind of the modern changes that are going on downtown. But additionally, it's a place to celebrate, right? This is a spot that acknowledges La Calle, and a bunch of families lived here prior to the 1968 demolition of 80 acres of the barrio. We wanted to create an exhibit that honored women from Tucson. It was just very timely. The renaming of the music hall to the Linda Ronstadt Music Hall, and then of course the renaming of the plaza to the Alva Torres Plaza, and she's the person who really spearheaded the fight to save the kiosco over there, as well as this building. You know, she was that intermediary between, I would say, the Mexican-American community and the larger Anglo community that had a lot of power at this time. And so to highlight the fact that their legacies live literally in this land was super important.
Linda Ronstadt's Spanish-language album, Canciones de mi Padre, is one of her most celebrated works. This next group follows in her tradition of excellent artists from Tucson. Las Azaleas is a woman-led mariachi group that features the voices and talent of female musicians.
And 1, 2. Las Azaleas rehearse once a week here in my little house, and we just go through the music we're preparing for the upcoming shows. We perform all over Tucson for both private and public events. Consuelo Velazquez, I would say, is probably the reason Las Azaleas is, because I knew her most famous song, Bésame Mucho, for years, for decades. Everybody knows that song. It's so beautiful, and it has been done the world over. I mean, it's arguably the most famous bolero romantic song out there, and I had no idea a woman composed it, and then a woman from Mexico. And so I thought, there have to be more people out there that don't know her name. And so that's what we're going to commit to, is to exposing the names of these really pioneering women in music through our music. Mariachi music is just such a huge part of the Mexican culture. I first became interested in mariachi in high school. I do have to preface that and say I didn't like mariachi at first. My dad was a big fan of mariachi music, and I was so embarrassed, OMG, that he was into mariachi. And ultimately, I think that stemmed from moving here from Mexico when I was 5, and for quite a bit of my, growing up presuming I was seen as other because I didn't know English really well, and so I really embraced my Americanness for many years in elementary school and middle school and in high school as well. And it wasn't until I got to high school and I saw the high school mariachi band, it just made such an impact to see that performance that I said, I have to learn to do that. The reason this ended up turning into a group that is all female and that performs the works of women is because it was an accident. I just wanted to experiment and I wanted to just play music. And it turned out I kept calling these really talented musicians and they all happened to be women.
I love this group, and just to have 5 super talented, wonderful ladies, we mesh well, we get along so well, we understand each other.
The main reason why I joined Las Azaleas was to get a new experience that wasn't just mariachi, and I think that Diana tries really hard to incorporate all types of female artists, whether it be a pop artist, we've done a couple pop songs.
Mariachi music started as a completely male-dominated genre, and all of the lyrics and the songs are from the viewpoint of a man. We make sure that the music we perform was either composed or popularized by a woman. And so I wouldn't want to just say we are a traditional group, just because I do value and appreciate the rich history of mariachi music. So let's look at the voices first. Give me an A chord, please. A donde irá veloz y fatigado.
I never thought that that I would be in something so powerful, because it is, woman-based and woman-led, and we're here to, spread the voices of women.
There's a little solo there. So 3, top. 3, 4, 1.
We see a lot of Vicente Fernandez and other men like that, mariachi men, but we don't really see Mexican mariachi women or Mexican, women in general. So I think us showing and displaying and telling who is singing these songs and why we're singing these songs is really awesome. And seeing people's faces in the audience like, I didn't know that, or oh yeah, I did know that, or like they're like, yeah, props. I really like that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm super proud of being in Las Azaleas.
I have so many dreams for Las Azaleas. I just love mariachi music. I think the music is poetic, and there are really great, inspiring women out there. And it's okay to just start your own band. It's okay to start your 2-person band or your 3-person band because it's provided such a safe outlet for me and so many musicians I know. And I hope we're able to inspire all kids to keep music in their lives.
While Las Azaleas is trying to inspire a younger generation, our next story is a good reminder you're never too old to find your passion. Robert McDonald took up photography in the 1990s after he retired from the Forest Service. Since then, his photos have been published in magazines, including Arizona Highways, and his entire archive is part of a photo collection at the Arizona State Museum. We join Robert and his 1977 Ford Bronco on a photo shoot in the San Francisco Peaks near Flagstaff. And along the way, he tells us about his journey as a landscape photographer.
My name is Robert McDonald. I was born in Cottonwood. I've lived in Flagstaff since June of 1977. I got interested in nature when I was in high school. Hunting and fishing was important, and it just evolved from there, from camping to backpacking trips. And I guess it just gave me a sense of well-being. I love the outdoors. That's why I work for the Forest Service. I was a civil engineer and surveyed and designed roads, and I also laid out trails, and then planning and designing campgrounds. So I started thinking, well, what am I going to do when I retire? And I thought mainly about wildlife photography. Then I started seeing all the neat landscapes out there. In the first part, I was just following the work of the previous photographers. And then as I continued onward, I just maybe developed my own style, you might say. And I had read books, too, about composition and the rule of thirds and some of this. But I would look at a subject and just say, you know, how would it look good to me? Well, the first photograph I got published was probably the most exciting. Well, the first image was one up on the San Francisco Peaks of autumn aspens, and the moon was in the photograph. But I was very happy, let's put it that way, and excited. You know, I'm 85, and so I'm not going to last, you know, forever. And I need to do something with these images rather than just throwing them away or something. Years ago, I had a print purchased by Arizona State Museum. I thought, well, I'll try them. And then Janelle said, sure, we'll take your photos, or something to that effect anyway. I feel good that they can be used and preserved rather than just forgotten and lost. You put the dark cloth over your head and you're looking at a viewing screen and you're kind of in your own little world.
Tucson has sun, and lots of it, today being a rare exception, so it's only natural that we become a hub for solar innovation. This next story introduces us to a University of Arizona chemistry professor and his company developing battery technology for long-term storage of solar energy.
We get this trouble, like sudden drop.
We didn't really begin with working on batteries. That's something that came up later when working with this molecule that we're developing in my lab. We found out they have these unique properties that can be used as energy storage electrolyte.
This stuff, electromethane.
And then you kind of like, okay. I'm Thomas Gianetti. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Arizona in the Department of Chemistry, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of CarbeniumTec, a battery technology startup. I started my lab here in 2017. At the time, it was just a thought, an idea, a vision. And it's not until Jules Moutet, which is a postdoc in my lab, that joined the group and really took that idea and that vision and make it work.
So this is a big DMQA, and I expect that the addition of the new... I came in with my background knowledge in terms of science and chemistry, but also with the will to make it work. I was not doing that before, but if you want, I can. Which one are you going to try right now? And so I think my skills of assembling battery at the end just got this amazing result that contribute to create this startup.
So with CarbeniumTec, we strive to develop a sustainable battery for long-duration energy storage. Energy storage as a whole is something that will be needed in the next 10, 20 years. It's a requirement for our society to transition from fossil fuel electricity production to renewable electricity production. The problem with renewable energy is the intermittency. For example, solar energy is only produced during the day. We're going to need batteries that can deliver electricity throughout the night. And there is no suitable technology as of today that can do that other than the technology that we are developing, which is redox flow battery. When you work in the lab, one of the most important parts is where we make molecules. So that's where you mix things together, you reflux things, so you heat it up and you basically make new molecules. Then what we will see is what we call a glove box, which is basically a device that allows us to do experiment under inert atmosphere. So no water, no oxygen, which just makes sure that we are in an ideal environment to study our electrolytes. And from there, we take our electrolyte from that glove box and we put it into our redox flow prototype. You would see a pump that basically flows the electrolyte from the reservoir into the electrochemical cell where the electron and an ion exchange happened. So what we need to do now is to push that work a little bit behind the lab and try to develop a pilot. That's where we started working with the USCI, which is the University of Arizona Center for Innovation.
You guys will be here in bench 2?
They really help us to understand the aspect of what it is to run a business, because we are, after all, scientists.
Now, the big next step is just transitioning own research lab in this Center of Innovation. It will be clearly more about bringing something from knowledge to something that could be at the end, probably sell and use.
So I was just mentioning, this is a really good example of what the dry labs are.
For myself, it's also a way to just growing from just an academic person to someone that is able to transform ID into something valuable for our society.
Lab coats?
It's something really motivating, it's highly stimulating.
what's really exciting about this move is really this growth of coming from a exciting research project in a lab to an actual company. There's this renewal of interest of realizing that really academic research are like the seed of innovation. That looks pretty nice, huh? Going through this process of developing a company and developing a technology and realizing, more importantly, that what I develop in the lab as an academic person can actually have an impact, really show me that I can do more. And I'm hoping that when this is on track and roll by itself, like just what else can I do? What other topic that is important to our society can I tackle and try to leave a footprint in?
Arizona is known for many native plants like the saguaro cacti or palo verde trees or the edible prickly pears. But the state is also blessed with a variety of agaves that occasionally grab your attention with those unique and colorful blooms. So today we introduce you to two of these agaves that also play an important part in the environment. You've probably seen them as you're hiking or driving in southeast Arizona.
Hi, I'm George Ferguson. I'm the collections manager at the University of Arizona Herbarium, which is the plant collection there. I'm standing next to a Palmer agave. It's called Agave palmeri, that's the scientific name. And this grows in the borderlands region of Arizona, from southwestern New Mexico across Arizona, commonly around the upper grasslands in the Nogales area, over towards Bisbee and the Mule Mountains, and in the Sky Islands around in northern Sonora. This is pollinated by a nectar-feeding bat called the lesser long-nosed bat, and it occurs in this area in the summer only. It's migratory. Comes up from central Mexico, follows the blooming cardon and saguaro and organ pipe cactus along the coast of Sonora, comes up into Arizona in early summer. But by the time this agave begins to bloom, those bats are over here in southern Arizona and southwestern New Mexico, utilizing this as their primary food source during the summer. And so there's a nice mutualistic relationship between this plant and the bat. As this agave begins to bloom, the lower leaves that stored starch during the winter, all that energy goes into production of the stalk. The leaves will dry out and die. This plant won't live much longer. It's on its way out, blooms once and dies. The Palmer agave is one of 4 species of agave in this part of Arizona that have these paniculator branching stalks. These produce capsules after the flower is pollinated. The capsules produce seeds. This rarely ever produces a side offset as well. It's one of the characteristics of the Palmer agave. As you get up towards the Catalina Mountains and the Rincon Mountains, from there north up into central Arizona is a very closely related agave called the golden flower agave, Agave Chrysantha. It blooms about the same time, slightly earlier, but the flowers are bright orange, golden yellow flowers, whereas the Palmer agave has kind of a dull pinkish maroon tinge to a cream-colored flower. And there's a hybrid area between about Oracle and the Rincon Mountains, which includes the Catalina Mountains, where these 2 species, the Palmer agave on the south and the golden flower and the agave on the north, come together and produce potentially hybrids, or at least some confusion about identity. The golden flower agave produces a lot of nectar, and that impressed me when I was able to shake it and have a rain of nectar fall on me in the daytime with all the visiting insect pollinators there. I guess I'll be out of view for a while here. Now here's a golden flower agave, still blooming with the last 5 panicles and even a few buds at the top. Some mammal has tried to climb this and probably did, maybe a ring-tailed cat or a fox, probably trying to get the nectar. My interest in these plants and the mutualistic relationships of these plants with animals is something that takes me outdoors and get to see it firsthand. Always a surprise. It's just something else that's new. Every time you go out, you learn something new. You know, there's so much out there. It's mind-boggling, the diversity that you see in plants and animals on Earth. When you start really studying it and looking at it, it's just amazing.
Evelyn, tell us about your connection to this special place, and tell me how you feel every time you walk in here.
Oh, I feel like I come home when I come here, and I come to visit my family and my descendants. My aunt, Leticia Carrillo Jacobs de Fuentes, was the last tenant that lived here. I remember playing in the backyard. I remember killing her goldfish in the living room because I didn't know that you didn't feed them inside the tank. I took them out and gave them bread. I'm happy to come because I feel her presence here. I feel my parents' presence here. They're long gone, but I get good vibes when I'm here. And I love to show this house off. I'm very proud of it.
You've got a special connection very few people have to a place and people.
Well, I don't know. Half of Tucson has a connection here because I'm related to half of Tucson. But when I'm here as a docent, or I've been here as a staffer while events are taking place in the patio, I've had many people tell me, I've lived here all my life. I didn't know this place was here. They are just delighted to find out that it's here. So that makes me feel very good.
Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara, and we'll see you next week for another all-new episode.